The gonads are the primary organs of the reproductive systems. In the male system, these are the testes, and in the female system, these are the ovaries. The gonads function to produce both hormones and to produce gametes or sex cells. The sex cells in the male system, or the gametes in the male system, will be sperm cells, and the gametes or sex cells in the female system are considered eggs or ova. Gametes are produced through a divisional process called meiosis, which is unique just for the production of cells with 23 chromosomes. The formation of gametes begins with primary sex cells containing 46 chromosomes. This will happen in both the male and the female system. Sometimes this condition is also referred to as the 2N condition, simply the number 2 with the letter N, or the diploid condition. A cell with 46 chromosomes usually contains 23 pairs. The gamete, during this divisional process, undergoes division and ultimately will be divided to form cells that have half the original amount, or 23 pieces of DNA or chromosomes. Sometimes this condition is known as the haploid condition, or simply the lowercase n condition. The organs and tissues in the male reproductive system have evolved to produce sperm, to transfer sperm, and also to produce and release male typical sex hormones. The penis is the primary external reproductive organ in the male system. It functions to deposit semen into the vagina. It consists of 3 cylindrical bodies of erectile tissue that fill with blood during erection. The corpus spongiosum is the erectile tissue found on the ventral side of the penis, and this also encloses the urethra. The corpora cavernosa will consist of 2 bodies divided by a septum located on the dorsal side of the penis. The distal end of the penis is considered to be the glans. The scrotum is an external pouch that contains the testes. Running from the abdominal pelvic cavity down into the scrotum is the spermatic cord. The spermatic cord contains the ductus deferens, as well as blood vessels, lymph tissue, and nerves. Associated with the testes are also several muscles that can allow the testes to be pulled closer to the torso. The darsos muscle attaches to the bottom portion of the testes, is made of smooth muscle, and when it contracts, it decreases the distance between the testes and the torso. Lastly, the cremaster muscle surrounds the spermatic cord and also helps pull the testes closer to the torso. The testes contain smaller internal compartments called lobules. Inside the lobules, the seminiferous tubules are found. The seminiferous tubules are the primary site for sperm production in the male system. Inside the tubules, there is an outer layer of germinal epithelium and an internal layer of sustentacular cells. The hollow space in the seminiferous tubules is known as the lumen. The germ cells in the seminiferous tubules are the cells that are in the process of dividing by meiosis to become sperm cells. Sustentacular cells in the seminiferous tubules protect the developing germ cells and promote their growth by making available nutrients, growth factors, and also by removing wastes. They line the tubules and also help to form the blood-testis barrier. The blood-testis barrier prevents proteins and other cells from contacting the germ cells, and it also prevents immune cells from attacking the developing germ cells. Because the germ cells are undergoing meiosis, their chromosome numbers are changing. These chromosomes make them genetically different from the other cells in the body. Because of these differences, the immune system does not recognize them and would tend to attack them. Thus, we need a barrier between the blood and these developing cells. Between the seminiferous tubules are found interstitial cells. These are small clusters of cells that produce a hormone called testosterone. This is the male primary sex steroid. The descent of the testes begins around during the 6th week of development. The testes originally develop inside the body up near the kidneys and are pulled down and out through the abdominal wall at about the 7th month. Descent of the testes is primarily driven by testosterone. In order for the testes to produce sperm, they must be outside of the body because the internal body temperature would be too warm to promote sperm production. The reed testis is a network of tubules that form when the seminiferous tubules come together. Ultimately, the pathways in the reed testes lead outside of the testis and carry cells into the epididymis. Sperm cells are carried internally in the male system by spermatic ducts. There are three components of the spermatic ducts, and these are all continuous tubes. The first portion is the epididymis. This is the site that forms when the reed testis accumulates and concentrates sperm on the outside of the testis. Sperm are stored in the epididymis, and they mature in these structures as well. This structure is found on the posterior side and is a single coiled duct. It takes about 20 days for sperm to travel through the epididymis to the distal portion where they are stored. Stored sperm remain viable for 40 to 60 days, after which they die and disintegrate. The ductus deferens continues from the epididymis and circles up and around the urinary bladder. It's a muscular tube that enters the pelvic cavity and unites with the duct from the seminal vesicles. The ductus deferens moves mature sperm internally from the testes ultimately to the ejaculatory duct. This structure was formerly known as the vas deferens, hence the term vasectomy, which is the procedure that severs this tube in the male system. Finally, the ejaculatory duct forms when the ductus deferens merges with the seminal vesicle duct. It passes through the prostate gland and ultimately empties into the urethra. In the male system, the urethra is shared between the reproductive system and the urinary system. It cannot pass urine and semen at the same time. There are a number of accessory structures in the male system that contribute to the volume of semen. The seminal vesicles are a pair of glands found posterior to the bladder. These glands secrete a milky fluid called seminal fluid that makes up about 60% of the volume of semen. The prostate gland surrounds the urethra and the ejaculatory duct and is found right below or inferior to the bladder. It secretes a substance known as prostate fluid that makes up approximately 30% of the volume of semen. Finally, the bulbourethral glands, or sometimes known as Cowper's glands, are underneath or inferior to the prostate. This gland produces a clear slippery fluid that lubricates the penis for intercourse. This fluid also neutralizes acidic residue from urine, which can be harmful to semen. The fluid that's released from the penis during orgasm is known as semen. It's comprised of 10% sperm, roughly 30% prostate fluid, and 60% seminal fluid. There are also traces of bulbourethral fluid found in the mixture. As previously mentioned, prostate fluid is thin, white, and milky and contains calcium, citrate, phosphate ions, and a clotting enzyme that will help semen stick to the internal walls of the vagina and the cervix. Additionally, prostate fluid helps to elevate or increase the pH of the solution. Sperm are not motile in acidic conditions, and this adaptation increases the opportunity for sperm to move. Seminal fluid is the last component of semen to emerge from the urethra. This fluid flushes any remaining sperm from the urethra and also contains fructose and other carbohydrates that can be used by the mitochondria in the body of the sperm cell to produce ATP. This ATP will be critical for powering or moving the flagellum in order to make the sperm motile. In the male system, production of sex cells or gametes is known as spermatogenesis. Germ cells undergo several rounds of division or meiosis, ultimately to produce 4 cells. Thus, a single primary sperm cell with 46 pieces of DNA will ultimately become 4 spermatids, each with 23 pieces of DNA. It takes roughly 74 days to go from the germ cell to the sperm cell process. Recall that at the end of mitosis, there will be 4 genetically distinct cells derived from the individual cell that started the process. Typically, a young man produces around 300,000 sperm per minute, or this will equate to roughly 40 million sperm cells per day. The production of sperm is dependent upon hormones and also age. As a man ages, the sperm production counts will lower.